September 15th, 2023, at 0530 local time, a Russian Buyan-M missile corvette in the Sea of Azov adjusted course to begin its firing sequence. 8 Kalibr cruise missiles sat armed inside their vertical tubes, each one destined for Ukrainian cities if the ship completed its checklist. For nearly 1 hour, the patrol had been quiet, the morning air still, the crew unaware that Swans would not survive the next few minutes. Unknown to them, Ukrainian operators had already released a hunting pack of precision drones. 7 airframes, each designed for speed, low-altitude flight, and the ability to slip through the fractured electromagnetic landscape that hung over the coast before sunrise. The lead drone pushed to more than 400 kilometers per hour as it converged on the first Russian checkpoint guarding the coastline. The operator watched muzzle flashes erupt without warning. Tracers rose through the dim light, each glowing arc a reminder that one wrong maneuver meant instant destruction. The checkpoint gunner could not see the drone. He could only hear the thin metallic whine of its electric motor echoing between concrete walls. He fired at sound alone, adjusting his aim with every rising pitch. The drone slid left in a tight jink as 23mm shells cracked the air around it. Each detonation threw shards of steel across the path it had occupied only fractions of a second earlier. The drone accelerated again, climbing past 430 kilometers per hour, cutting through the engagement zone before the gunner could swing the barrel back. But the escape came with a cost. The eruption of gunfire carried through the valley, reaching Russian posts long before formal radio messages did. Within minutes, alerts spread across private messaging channels that Russian soldiers relied on, far more than their assigned communication systems. The element of surprise dissolved into scattered digital warnings as the drone continued its run. The operator's feed flashed with static. The camera shook. Power lines emerged from darkness only when they filled the entire image. The drone's altimeter dropped sharply as the operator hauled the airframe upward, missing 110,000-volt cables by barely 2 meters. Every onboard system glitched. The compass spun. The image stuttered. For 3 seconds, it flew nearly blind. When the feed steadied, a radio tower filled the left side of the screen. The operator rolled the drone away from the guy wires, clearing them by what felt like a single breath. 2 more drones followed the lead, spaced roughly half a minute apart, using the distraction to pass unnoticed. These were specialized variants, lighter, tuned for electronic attack. Their job was not to strike the ship, but to blind it long enough for the heavier warheads behind them to land decisive blows. 4 slower drones, carrying 250-kilogram charges each, took a northern approach, trading speed for destructive power. These were the precision hammers meant to finish the mission if the vanguard survived. But those scattered warnings had consequences. At the next checkpoint, a jammer waited. Its operator activated a repellent-class system that broadcast several hundred watts of electromagnetic interference across known control bands. The lead heavy drone lost signal instantly. The operator's monitor went black, but the airframe did not fall. It shifted automatically into autonomous mode, using stored waypoints, accelerometer readings, and optical landmarks to navigate through the invisible storm. After 3 long minutes, the video returned. The drone had held its course perfectly. A BTR-82 armored vehicle blocked the highway ahead, its machine gun already cycling in a sweeping pattern learned from earlier encounters. The operator dipped the drone into an industrial district, using narrow alleys and sheet metal roofs as shields. But those same structures sheltered Russian soldiers jolted awake by the motor's echo. They spilled out in clusters, firing at scattered noise and fleeting shadows. The drone held just 10 meters altitude, low enough that distant radar systems lost sight of it due to curvature and ground clutter. What radar could not see, rifles tried to compensate for. Eventually, a coordinated volley connected. The 3rd reconnaissance drone spiraled down into a parking lot, its warhead detonating on impact. 2 of the lighter drones and 2 heavy airframes remained. The margin for error grew thinner with each kilometer. When the lead scout crested the final ridge, the operator froze for half a second. The briefing had missed a key detail. A Panzer ME launcher waited directly in the drone's path, already turning, already tracking. 6 missiles erupted in staggered sequence. These were newer anti-drone interceptors, built specifically after earlier failures against small quadcopters. Each missile carried a fragmentation sleeve designed to throw hundreds of tungsten spheres outward at nearly 2,000 meters per second, creating expanding rings of lethal metal. The operator knew the missiles had a mandatory arming delay, more than 1 second after launch. At the drone's current speed, it would cross over 140 meters in that time. The moment he saw ignition flares, he dove nearly straight toward the launcher. The missile streaked overhead unarmed, passing close enough that the drone's camera flared white from their exhaust. By the time they armed, the drone sat below their lethal envelope, gliding beneath them like a needle slipping under a closing fist. The operator leveled the drone at roughly 5 meters altitude, angling directly toward the podlet radar, feeding tracking data to every system within 200 kilometers. Automatic cannons on the launcher fired in rigid patterns, attempting to build predictive boxes of fire. But their solution lagged by more than 3 seconds, while the drone changed direction. The drone slammed into the radar's antenna assembly, its shaped charge collapsing a copper cone into a hypersonic jet that punched through the array, the processing core, and out the rear wall before dispersing. The second scout dove for an older early warning radar. Dawn's temperature inversion distorted thermal signatures, turning the drone into a faint cold speck that vanished whenever it crossed cooler ground. The gunner occurred in spiraling patterns, exhausting thousands of rounds without a hit. When the shaped charge detonated against the radar housing, more than 200 kilometers of early warning coverage blinked out. The Buyan-M corvette, 4 kilometers offshore, was suddenly isolated, forced to rely on its own systems with dramatically shorter detection range. The heavy drones advanced. The ship's radar struggled to separate low-flying drones from waves rising 2 meters high. Ghost contacts appeared and vanished with each sweep. Algorithms meant to filter sea clutter removed real targets instead. The corvette brought its close-in weapons online, twin 30mm cannons cycling thousands of rounds per minute. Their targeting system tried to predict the drone's paths through Kalibr filtering, but the random course changes fed bad data into every calculation. Predictions collapsed into noise. The ship launched chaff next, filling the air with metallic clouds that would confuse radar-guided missiles. But the Ukrainian drones did not rely on radar. Operators watched through their onboard cameras, ignoring the floating debris as it glittered in the rising sun. The Buyan-M activated its TK-95E electronic countermeasure suite, sending out 200 watts across the spectrum, from 20 MHz to 40 GHz. Against conventional drones, the signal would have severed control instantly, but the Ukrainian drones hopped between 128 channels per second in a pseudo-random sequence known only to their operators. The operator adapted, gliding over the rising waves as the sun broke through thin clouds. The captain ordered evasive S-turns at full speed. The vessel, 949 tons, required roughly 15 seconds to pivot 30 degrees. The drone, meanwhile, reacted in milliseconds. The operator timed the approach to exploit steady segments between the turns. At 500 meters, manual control took over. The radar mast filled the screen, 6 meters of concentrated electronics. The cannons could not depress below -5 degrees. Trigonometry dictated the strike. At 3 meters altitude, the drone was effectively invisible to automated defenses. Crewmen manned PKM machine guns, whirring instinctively, but each round moved too slowly. The drone crossed their field of view in 0.8 of a second. By the time the first bullet left the barrel, the drone was 100 meters away. The lead-heavy drone struck precisely at the mast, its shaped charge primed for maximum effect. Inside the electronics hub, circuits vaporized, sensors melted, communications went silent. The captain shouted for emergency missile launch, but the launch sequence required 2 minutes for gyroscopes, validation, and warm-up. Those minutes did not exist. 2 additional heavy drones closed the port and starboard sides. The second targeted the missile magazine, angled at 30 degrees to hit the junction of reinforced bulkheads. The operator compensated for the ship's drift, its 3-degree list from hard maneuvering, and the estimated motion of the 8 armed Kalibrs. The copper cone inside the shaped charge focused explosive force into a hypersonic jet traveling 7,000 meters per second. Steel plating resisted briefly, then yielded as if it were papers. The corvette remained afloat, its superstructure blackened, its hallways charred, smoke rising intermittently from hidden compartments. The operators of the drones, hundreds of kilometers away, had neutralized a $500 million warship, using components sourced from commercial suppliers. The ship's radar now detected only intermittent ghost contacts at distances below 4 kilometers. Waves 2 meters high returned radar signals indistinguishable from drones flying at 3 meters. Doppler filtering failed. The control computer, designed to predict linear trajectories, struggled with erratic course changes between 80 and 120 knots. Every third sweep eliminated the drones entirely, judging them to be false returns. Yet the operators ignored the algorithms, relying on visual confirmation through the onboard camera systems. Twin AK-630 duet cannons spun up, firing 10,000 rounds per minute. Chaff clouds bloomed across radar screens, hundreds of false echoes stretching 50 kilometers from the corvette. Operators guided their airframes visually, slipping between false returns and electromagnetic interference. Even as the corvette's close-in weapons continued firing, the drones approached their final targets, exploiting gaps created by rapid environmental changes and unpredictable vessel motion. One drone ascended slightly to line up the Podlet K-1 radar, the system supplying targeting data for the network of Russian launchers across the region. The shaped charge struck precisely, collapsing the array into molten metal streams. Within moments, the radar feed ceased. Redundant backup systems did not activate. The drone remained nearly invisible, a faint cold speck against the sea's warming surface. The second drone angled toward the P-18's spoon rest radar. It faced automatic thermal imaging. The operator timed the approach to coincide with the peak of the inversion, ensuring the aircraft blended into the background. Gunner fire escalated, but the drone shifted unpredictably. Each pivot evaded high-speed rounds. After detonation, more than 200 kilometers of early warning coverage vanished. The Buyan-M, now isolated from its support radars, relied entirely on onboard sensors with a maximum effective range of roughly 40 kilometers. The remaining heavy drones entered the corvette's immediate proximity. Ghost contacts flared and vanished with every radar sweep. The crew attempted to track targets manually, but the speed and erratic motion of the drones made human reaction insufficient. The corvette captain attempted maximum evasive maneuvers, zigzagging at 8 knots per turn, but each course correction took seconds. The drones required mere milliseconds to adjust. By the time the first missile could intercept, the drone had passed below its minimum engagement angle. The lead heavy drone executed its final approach at 3 meters altitude. The operator adjusted for hull pitch, list, and wave interference. A last-moment course correction ensured the shaped charge struck the radar hub at a perfect 90-degree angle. Explosive energy focused, metal yielded, electronics melted. Communication, targeting, and control arrays failed simultaneously. The corvette, previously a threat capable of launching 8 cruise missiles, now lacked functioning radar, data links, and early warning capacity. In less than 10 minutes, the airframes neutralized the vessel's offensive and defensive capabilities entirely. The remaining 2 drones now advanced through the chaos of smoke and debris. Waves reflected sunlight in intermittent flashes, disguising their approach. The corvette's crew, overwhelmed by multiple simultaneous failures, struggled to identify real targets. Every automated system was offline or feeding false data. The drones adjusted to account for shifting hull angles and wind gusts. Sensors meant to detect metal signatures became unreliable, as the operators had optimized flight paths to mimic natural reflections off the water's surface. One drone angled directly at the port-side missile cells, its electric motors producing barely a 10-degree rise above ambient heat. The thermal imaging system attempted to compensate for a low morning sun and a thin layer of fog rising from the Sea of Azov, but the drone remained a near-perfect cold spot. Operators on the bridge fired personal weapons and small automatic systems, but every round struck nothing. The operator timed the strike for the exact moment when thermal inversion provided optimal concealment. Smoke filled the bridge as systems failed, alarms ceased, and the ship became an island of isolated crew struggling to comprehend the extent of the destruction. The Buyan-M's radar, its heart for tracking and early warning, remained blind. Waves, normally insignificant, now merged with the low-flying drones to create an almost invisible battlefield. Every radar sweep produced confusing echoes, multiple ghost targets, and false returns. Mechanical turrets fired continuously, but the drones altered course before the fire control computer could even predict the next position. Human reaction compounded the inefficiency. Eyes could not follow, reflexes failed, and the operators remained reliant on systems now made ineffective by months of Ukrainian testing and adaptation. The portside missile cells, the very instruments meant to launch 8 Kalibrs, became inert. 100% of the offensive capability of the vessel was neutralized without a single missile leaving its tubes. Drones maintained positions nearby to ensure no human intervention could restore partial functionality before all systems were permanently damaged. Each maneuver accounted for the corvette's exact heading, tilt, and environmental conditions. Calculated risks paid off in real time, delivering absolute precision strikes on key systems while avoiding unnecessary losses. As the smoke cleared and the morning fog lifted, the Buyan-M drifted, unable to process threats or respond. Its hull intact, yet effectively blind, deaf, and mute to the surrounding environment. Crews scrambled, but every remaining system failed to provide actionable data. Early warning, targeting, communications, radar, missile guidance, all neutralized. The corvette could no longer pose a threat to Ukrainian territory or forces. The 8 Kalibr missiles, each a $100 million weapon, remained in their cells, unlaunched, inert, and useless. Operators monitored the scene for the final phase. One drone circled above, ensuring no backup systems could be restored. When the final assessments were completed, the drones disengaged. They returned to pre-planned recovery points, some landing safely on nearby coastal zones, others entering autonomous return trajectories. The mission, meticulously planned and executed, left no room for chance. The Buyan-M, valued at $500 million, had been neutralized using commercially sourced components and careful observation. Every tactical advantage leveraged by Ukrainian operators ensured maximum impact with minimal risk. Within hours, intelligence analysts confirmed the strategic implications. The loss of the corvette's radar and control systems meant Russian operations along the Sea of Azov would be delayed. A single, precisely executed drone operation had rewritten the operational calculus, leaving the Buyan-M blind, silent, and unable to threaten the coastline it once dominated. The drones, unassuming in size yet monumental in impact, had changed the outcome before human eyes on the ship could react. In the span of one engagement, precision, environmental mastery, and innovative thinking had achieved what conventional power projection could not. The mission concluded, the threat neutralized. The message, unmistakable. Even the most advanced warship could be defeated by a combination of intelligence, observation, and unmanned ingenuity.